All right, good morning. Successful indie author, 5-minute focus, episode 27, Power of the Hook. Let's talk about the hook. Especially, we've been doing some anthologies lately and asking people to send in their first 500 words and see how it works for us. And we've seen a lot of people doing a slow build-up, doing an info dump, doing a world building in that first 500 words, and it just didn't engage us. So we rejected the story based on that alone, first 500 words. In Mickey Spillane's famous comment, first chapter sells this book, the last chapter sells the next book. What he's saying is hook them and keep them hooked throughout the whole story. Hal Leonard said, I leave out the stuff that readers tend to skip. So you want to hook them, keep them hooked, and keep them engaged to the story. So how do you do that? In today's binge world, a slow buildup could kill you, could work against you, but you have to incrementally introduce the characters and the situation because you don't want that info dump. You don't want to just start with 10 pages of background and building and a prologue that says, hey, here's the world you're going into. If you look at The Lord of the Rings, it's epic. It's a massive storyline, 3 books. And the Fellowship of the Ring, 9 characters, but that's like chapter 107 that you finally get the 9 characters together. It starts with Bilbo and Frodo, and introduces them and walks you through them and lets you relate to them and their quirky behaviors without just saying, "Hey, hobbits are quirky." Don't do that. Show them. Here's you doing. He's sitting there smoking, hanging out, doing nothing. And then Gandalf, and introduce him, and then he pops off the screen so you can focus on the main characters. So that's what you're trying to do. You want to engage your readers without telling them too much. Don't be overly descriptive and take away their imagination. What you want to do is you want to engage their imagination and let them fill out the world while you have the characters walking through it. John Truby is a big fan of characters drive the plot forward. You have this overarching plot. In Lord of the Rings, you don't even know what that is until much, much later. The hobbits have to do these certain things. And you want to go because the hobbits are quirky little characters, but you haven't been told they're quirky. You've been shown that they're quirky. And they're always hungry. What about second breakfast? A classic line. So use enough description to engage your reader's imagination and then make the characters relate and build slowly. This is one of the most important things. I read a book once where it started perfect. Hey, here's a character. He's got a lot of flaws, but he's working hard to get through the world, a private investigator. And then at the end of the first chapter, he gets killed. I stopped reading. It's like, I'm not going to, what's going to happen each chapter after this where, am I going to get surprised and all the characters and that was the whole first chapter was about this one character, and then he got killed. I'm not a fan of that. I know that flies in some genres, but you don't want to kill off the character that you've spent this time and invested the reader's time in building up and engaging with. I wouldn't do that. Let them see a character. Let them move through it. My most successful series has sold like $500,000 worth. Terry Henry Walton. In that first chapter, it was him running from werewolves, trying to survive, and then he crawls out of a creek and staggers to an old lady's house who takes him in, and he heals, and then he wants to take care of this lady for taking care of him when she had no reason to. He was just some dude out of the wilderness, post-apocalyptic world. And then some guys came after her, and he took care of them and said, just because you took care of me. That character, and then that character. And that storyline is 19 books long, and that character goes from the first all the way to the end. And he stays that way, and he's consistent. But the showing the readers and getting them invested in that character so they can stay. And I've had a lot of readers say, this is my favorite character. I love him, and I love what he does, and I love how he approaches life. So I hooked them in that first chapter, and they've stayed along for a $500,000 worth of a ride. So it can't be all bad now, as far as this is what I do. So Hook them. First chapter, your first sentence, your first paragraph. Don't give the readers a reason to put your book down. Don't info dump to them. Show them a character, let them engage with the character, let them relate to the character, give them just enough description to keep them engaged and get their imagination, because now their world is much more flush than what you can paint it with words. And then build the characters up, build them up slowly, show them a little bit at a time. Tolkien's journey to Mordor, little bit at a time. They found out more bits of the story as they went on. It's a good way to do it. Show them a little bit at a time and let the readers fill out the rest. All right, everybody, that's it. 5-minute focus today. Power of the hook. Hook them, keep them hooked, and then hook them again with the next book. Peace, fellow humans.